It has to be
Can
right
we
now.
just rewind for a second and go back to the doctor who
Mm.
didn't bother clearly to look at your chart and suggested you having mammograms when you had had a double
Yep.
mastectomy? Like, what
Mm.
the actual F?
Right.
That
Right.
is such, and I hear these stories all the time.
Yep.
And I know doctors have a lot of patients. I'm sure they're overloaded, all those things, but you have one job. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
like I'm
Read a
sorry,
chart.
that just
Was
makes
the
my blood boil.
that was the
Yeah.
moment where I was like, I need to find a new doctor. He had been
Yeah.
Yeah.
like, I only ever go to like, he was my primary care. And I only ever went to a primary care if something was like super abnormal, right? Like I don't, even though I have a cold right now, like I never went to the doctor for like the flu. I didn't go to the doctor for like I would get a physical because sports made me, and then every other doctor for me is a specialist. So
Mm.
to be in the presence of someone who's just like checking boxes is what I felt like.
Yeah.
Um, but he was
Mhm.
like, he was a necessary evil. In order to get to my specialist, I needed to have him on record.
Mhm.
But then that was also the first step. Like sometimes in a lot of medical care, you have to go to your primary first, and then you have
Yeah.
to have
Yeah.
this test done before they then send you to this doctor. And you're like, but I already know the problem. Can you just
Right.
give me a specialist?
Yep.
So I
What would
was,
make sense is like if your primary was sort of like the hub, right? And knew everything that was going on with you.
yeah,
And then they were the one to determine like, okay, we need you to see this person, but like again, was like operating as the hub. So and I feel like that's how it's supposed to work. Like if you have to go to the ER or you're, you have to put in a referral, like they get reports, they're supposed to know. And again, I don't know if it
Mhm.
just goes back to like they have too many patients or I don't know, but
I
the whole medical landscape is so frustrating right now.
like if
Yeah, and
you're
I think the
a good
biggest
advocate,
lesson is you just have to advocate for yourself 100%. That's the only answer with all of this. I had a procedure done. Well, you guys, I've mentioned my GI issues to you guys before, but about 10 years ago, I had a colonoscopy, which some of us are very familiar with as well, Lisa. Um, she's like our professional. Anytime I need to
I'm a
do
professional patient.
prep, I'm gonna talk to you. But anyway, I had a colonoscopy done, and the GI specialist, the surgeon, um, afterwards diagnosed me with something rather serious. I don't think I've ever told you guys this story, and put me on some very serious meds that made me very seriously ill. But it was like the necessary evil at that point, or so I thought. So 11 months later, I was still very sick, and I felt like the medicine was making me sick and it wasn't solving my problem. So I called the doctor and he got on the phone after I talked to his nurse and said, I don't think the medicine's helping. And he said to me, why are you still taking that? And I said,
No.
why wouldn't I still be taking that? And he said, your labs came back after your colonoscopy negative for that. And I said, "Well, you never
No.
called to tell me that, and you've been filling my prescription every time it's been up for renewal." So, for
Oh
11
man.
months, I took this really nasty med that I didn't need to take. I didn't have the diagnosis, and he forgot to tell me that I didn't
Oh,
need to. So the one
oh
thing I
my God.
absolutely like, I already knew that you have to advocate for yourself, and I should never have let it go 11 months because it was January to November. I'll never forget it. And I was finally so sick of it. I was like, how is this not helping? And I'm so sick. So yeah,
But
100%.
how would you know? Like this is a
Well,
new,
that's it.
it's a condition you don't know anything about or it's new to
Mhm.
you and like
Yeah,
that's
that was
unbelievable.
mind blowing to me. And I
What was his
recently,
response? Like
I mean,
like
he was kind of dumbfounded and I was dumbfounded and I probably, I think if it were to have happened today, and I think Erin, this goes full circle back to one of the things you said about someone in our web, which is now what I'm going to call it, at least for tonight, saying that one of the things they love about this stage of life that we're in is this empowerment and
Mhm.
this sense of
Yeah.
confidence. That's kind of how I translate that. And maybe if that were to happen to me today, my words would be very different and probably stronger, and I probably would have pursued it further than I needed to have, than I did at that time. And I would have stood up for myself. I probably would have talked to, I don't know, practice manager or like gone further with it. And I didn't at the time. I just let it go. I recently saw my current GI specialist and we went through all that history and she was dumbfounded too. But she did assure me that he's no longer even in our system. And unfortunately, she told me that there were a lot of bad experiences with that particular doctor. So that leads me to my next personal revelation is that, and I'm sorry to any doctors who are listening, but the good doctors will agree with me that doctors are just people who have gotten a few more degrees than we have and have been to a little more school. And they all have personalities. So you have to find one who, number one, your personalities mesh and you trust and they listen and they're as compassionate as they are intelligent. Because I've also had, other experiences that weren't that dramatic, but that were not exactly positive or pleasant either. And right now I feel like I've got a really good group of, medical professionals that help me. But that took a long time to put together. And if one of them leaves, or Lisa, I can't imagine when you moved and you had to leave your network of doctors, that's got to be very unsettling to have to put it all back together too. So
yeah, it's made me, and I think part of that, like answering those questions of like some things that have come out of midlife, is it's made me more of an advocate. So like I found my primary here, and it's not the same setup. Like I don't have to go to her to go to someone else, but I can go to her and be like, "Can you recommend?" But something my mom used to say while she was very ill was, "I just wish all my doctors would sit together at one table and talk." And there
Yes.
were a
Yes.
couple of instances where like this doctor gave her this medicine, this doctor gave her this medicine, and then they both found out that she was taking them both when she was in the ER because she
oh
had
gosh.
nearly overdosed. And I'm
Oh
like,
my God.
it needs to be more of a team effort. So like
Yeah.
I'm very intentional with the people that I'm seeking out, but it's like a whole second job of trying to
Yeah.
figure out like who to get and how can you get to them. And I'm going to meet someone new this week. I'm going to meet an HRT specialist. So we'll
No.
see how that works.
Nice. Yeah.
I'm just excited to pick his brain now that I've talked to you guys and, ask more questions. But I think you have to, like, I'm happy. This is going to sound weird, but like, I'm happy I only have to take care of it for me and maybe my husband.
Hmm.
Because I don't know that I have brain capacity to do it for multiple other humans. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know how as
Yeah.
parents you guys handle that kind of stress. But it also, I guess, would make you equipped to do it because you had to take care of them from the time they couldn't do anything to teach
Right.
them to
Yeah.
do the right things. But it's scary. Like,
Mm.
It is.
No,
Yeah.
wasn't
And
it
it is.
back in the 2000s that do you remember the whole movement for the electronic medical record? We were calling them what, EMR or whatever. There was supposed to be this whole transition to a very consistent medical record that anybody you saw was supposed to have access to and see all of the missing pieces.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to that because if whatever they called that did happen, it certainly didn't solve the problems it was intended to solve, correct?
so all my doctors can see all my stuff. I can
Mm,
they can see all of my stuff from Boston. They can see my stuff from Maine.
okay.
So like the network is there. It's a matter of like, do they have enough
Are they
time
paying attention?
to
Yeah.
then go like get those alerts and say like, oh wait, there was one time when I was filling my mother's prescriptions and it was the pharmacist that was like, she can't take
Yeah.
these.
Yeah,
Um,
it's usually the pharmacist that'll catch it.
yeah,
Mhm.
and it's kind of like they do all need to sit at a table, but I think of it like teaching. Like I mentioned to a parent, like, you can come on this day and we might be able to get all the teachers together. But if you come with me on any other day, you're only going to see me. Um,
Yeah.
we're not dealing with life and death. We're dealing with like teaching, writing paragraphs. But it's still like, it's a hard network to create.